Thank you, as always, for joining us on Central Mass Chronicles, a program where we take a look at state, local, national issues, but always with an emphasis on what's happening right here in Central Massachusetts. And our panel today is longtime Central Mass panelist Randy Feldman, leading immigration attorney, and then we have dueling editors from Worcester Magazine. We have Walter Crockett, and then we have Walter Bird as well. Also, just to be clear, there is one of the things that we never tell anybody is how to dress for the program. So some people decide they need ties, some people decide it's more casual, whatever the case may be.
These guys have all made the wrong decision.
And they have indeed. Here's what we're going to begin with today, and Randy, I'll begin with you. It has been put forward by the Research Bureau that should the WRTA go fare free, and the argument is that they bring in about $3 million. Crazy that about $1 million of that goes to collecting the $3 million. It costs them $500,000 a year just to keep up with repairing the fare boxes, and then it costs them about another $250,000 to have people actually physically collect the money. So the argument, or part of the argument, seems to be that, you know, for a couple $1 million, which you could get maybe from some other sources, you could go fare free, and would more people then ride the bus?
It would be a great experiment, but there should be something on the line. So you try it for a year, right? Fare free. Sounds great, sounds bizarre, all of those things. Give it a try, see if ridership increases. If ridership doesn't increase, you get rid of the bus service, except in the lines where it's cost effective. So, and the reason I say that is because as an immigration lawyer, I have a lot of working class people that I represent, sometimes working poor, sometimes the bottom of the middle class, and they all buy cars when they come. Right? They buy used cars. Nowadays, people get loans to get cars. It's very common, like the old mortgages. They get it for cars now. They'll get a lot of loans. And people basically drive themselves in Worcester. And the only people that don't drive themselves generally use gypsy cabs, Uber, taxis, and poorer people who need to go to appointments. So if the city can't accommodate the poorer people who need to go to the appointments unless they're on main lines, but the working poor, working class are all buying cars, if that's the kind of city we'll end up being, so be it. But it's a great experiment to give it a try for a year and to see if you can increase ridership. But if not, pull the plug.
Yeah, I don't know, Walter number one. Walter Crockett, it's interesting. I don't know. It's well, because he preceded you at that. Kind of building on what Randy said, though. So I mean, right now it does seem as if the people who use the WRTA, it is a safety net, and people are using it for different services. This is why when Councillor Rosen made his comment about is it possibly obsolete, I think a lot of people got very upset about that comment, but we don't really view it the way that I think a lot of people view their bus system, that we need to get more cars off the road, etc.
Right. I don't quite agree with Randy on this, because really this is like the first step in trying to make America survive under climate change. You know, I think it's a great idea, and I think, frankly, they should make all public transit, not including airplanes at least, fare free if it involves anybody commuting anywhere to work. When I was a kid in Worcester, downtown worked partly because there were bus lines everywhere, and people could go there, and people of all ages, and they were not just women, and they were not just poor people, took the bus. We took the bus all the way from Tatnick to Classical High School back in the days there was one. You could do that all over the place and transfer easily, and that's the way it should be. Right now we have a greatly shrunken bus system, so nobody's going to take it. If the bus came by my house to go into Worcester and I could get back home from Kelley Square, I would take it. You know, we have to get more cars off the road, and you can't get more cars into that. I mean, look we'll talk about it when you come to Kelley Square, but we're talking about massive influxes of cars that have no place to go, and restaurants where nobody can park.
Do you think that part of this, though, is, and Walter, I'll let you start on this, that we should, is the WRTA the way that it works right now? So the way that Walter is talking about it seems to me almost as if you have a different system. I mean, I've got almost the trolley system that Sean Rose has been talking about, where you've got something that's just going up and down some of the main drags, the main thoroughfares, and I know it's coming every 10 minutes and I'm going to be able to hop on it. That's not what we have with the WRTA
No, it
now.
isn't. And again, I think that Councilor Rosen took some unfair criticism because I don't think he was trying to say that, wipe the whole thing out. He was saying that it's possibly obsolete. What I took that as meaning, or how I look at it, the obsolete part of it is the way it's functioning now is not working. I don't think any of us could disagree with that. It's not working. I think you're right. I think the idea of fixed routes of the buses just going the main thoroughfares, going high traffic areas where people are taking it. Walter brings up a point about getting more cars off the road. I don't know that I totally agree with that, but I do agree with this. We have a traffic problem in Worcester. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. It's going to get worse. And so if you can get more people, onto buses, that could help.
No, agreed, and that is the more traditional way. I would have to say, for me personally, and I get stuck in traffic like anybody else, particularly going up Grafton Hill around 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Try Lincoln Square.
Yeah, right. I mean, same kind of thing.
Around 3,
You know what? It would have to get a lot worse for me before I jump on the bus. And I don't think of myself as an elitist. I don't know if I know how to jump on the WRTA right now. I don't know. What do I do? Do I use a bus pass? Do I need cash?
Well,
I've never ridden it.
That's part of the problem. Again, they've made it. There's a functional problem with this because it's not easy enough to use. It does take time. So you're getting on the bus. You're either taking time putting your fare in, using your car, whatever you have to figure out. Because you're right. I'm not sure that I could just walk out of my house today and go to the end of the street and know exactly what I'm supposed to do to get on that bus. I think the Research Bureau report was interesting. It brought up a lot of things. I think one of the first things you have to do is look at why has ridership gone down, because it has dramatically gone down. And I think that there's fare. I don't know if fares are the whole issue. Stigma, perhaps. The use of it. How is it easy enough to use? I think a pilot program is a good idea.
Well,
Let's
it's back
try
to
it
what
out.
Randy said. I mean, it's different in Worcester. It's not the same as in New York City or
Right.
Boston. It's not. I mean, it really is more of a lifeline.
I would try it, to be perfectly honest with you, if we were going to start it anywhere, I'd start it with the colleges. I think that's where we need the most action right now is to get the kid. What are we all talking about? We're talking about these kids coming to college and they're not coming downtown. We've seen the stories about it. We've heard from college kids saying, nobody really leaves Clark University because I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that. If we can have a reliable transportation system to get them from Clark downtown back to Clark, Holy Cross, a circular route or whatnot, I would try it out with the colleges first because I would think there's a wealth. Look, what do we have? 35, 40,000 college students.
They need a reason to go downtown too.
Well, they do.
That's
also coming.
So, what do you guys think? Is the WRTA the answer, though? See, I think you guys are creating something new.
If it works, that'd be great. But the reason why people don't take the bus, I've never been on a bus, probably none of us, I don't know anyone else been on a bus. It's really the sense of freedom and empowerment that we don't want to give up. We got a car. We can go wherever we want, whenever we are. I go to Boston twice a week, and the traffic is terrible.
Yeah.
But I'm still taking my car. I can listen to the radio. I can go when I want. When I live in New York City, I take the subway. It's every 5 minutes. There's a new car coming.
Right.
It's not impinging on my freedom. I'm not giving up my car because I'm not going to give up my freedom.
You'd rather go have the human race go extinct in 25, 50, 100 years than give up your freedom to ride in the car. That's what you're saying. That's really what you're saying.
I believe there'll be a technological solutions to whatever problems that we're
We're
going to
going
have.
to put ourselves in little pods and shoot ourselves through
Well,
the
we're
air?
going to have solar energy. We're going to have a hybrid kind of cars. We're going to have things that run on not on gasoline. We're going to change as the economy makes us
Walter
change.
and Worcester, you're going to have to
There
force
isn't
people.
enough time. There is no time to do anything but put in the most massive
think we're
effort.
headed for extinction
We got like
people-
10,
people headed for
we
extinction
got
in
10 to
25
12 years before things start
But then-
spiraling out of control.
Then we need the
that's
city
documented.
council, we need the administration to start to mandate if that is the case. We're not going to do it on our own.
Well, it would be more than the city council. You need a national thing. Whether we get that or not, I don't know. But to back off a little bit of the doomsday scenario, I would just say that the guy who's standing next to Price Chopper at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night with a bunch of groceries waiting to go somewhere else in Worcester, the bus is working for them. It's not working that well, but it's working because they don't have a car. And the college kids are, I would guess, much more affluent than the average Worcester person. Particularly much more affluent than the people who can't afford cars, who are either
All right.
immigrants or poorer people. I mean,
We got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm yes for the fare free. Let's give it a try. What do you think?
I say,
Yeah?
yeah, absolutely. Let's give it a try.
You want some sort of pilot program? You're a yes?
I'm a yes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
There you have it. We're going to have fare free.
Now
alert
that-
the media. I guess that's it. Hey, much more to come right here on Central Mass Chronicles.
No, but just-
Welcome to the Mayor's Forum. I'm Mayor Joe Petty.
Join Mayor Petty as he sits down with local politicians, city employees, and community leaders in the city of Worcester.
Groups that are difficult to reach out will be the senior citizens, new immigrants, and children.
They really thought the first couple of years they would have this walk for the homeless and they'd be able to raise all this money and the problem would go away.
The Mayor's Forum on Charter TV3.
We have something bad, we don't try to make it better, and we just say, that's what we deserve, we're Worcester. Elizabeth Warren is just about as warm as the shores of Lake Quinsigamon in January. Hey, there's been some big reform on Beacon Hill. Guess what? We don't pay state reps and senators to drive to work anymore.
Elizabeth Warren talks about the 1%. She is the 1%. Now, if you really are so concerned about the little guy and the average guy and the middle income person, where are you? Too bad that our own Congressman, Jim McGovern, doesn't have the fortitude to stand up and speak on behalf of the people in his community. They all go to Congress with no money in their pocket, and they all leave there as millionaires. How does that happen?
I'm sure that you have all seen that there is media consolidation that is going on, and Worcester is certainly not immune. Central Mass is not immune to this media consolidation. Walter Bird, I don't know if you've heard that Gatehouse Media has had some consolidation and has had
Pink slip was just
some
a colorful piece of paper.
layoffs, across the nation. So you do know firsthand.
Yeah.
But I am talking, larger. What does it mean for us as the consumer? We have, listen. I mean, in my own opinion, we have a president who is actually attacking the First Amendment on a daily basis with fake news. So we have that battle that is going on at the same time. We now have large companies, and we have smaller and smaller local news staffs to be able to service us. What's your take?
It's become, look, what do we see every time a longtime store goes out of business? They have their going out of business sale, and everybody shows up, and oh my God, I can't believe we're losing this business. I can't believe we're losing. And they all knew that they were going to lose the business because they weren't going there in the first place. People stopped. They changed their habits. They changed their consumer habits. And that's what's happened with news. People are changing. I think that the news industry itself has done itself no favors at all with the way that some of these places are run, some of these papers are run. And here we are. There's a focus on digital. But I want to say this, that I was told 30 years ago, 25 years ago, when I first started full time, 20 years plus ago, that print papers aren't going to last. There's another 5 years, another 10 years. Well, they're still around. But it is becoming accelerated, and I think it plays into Walter's argument there about the environment too. We've been hearing a lot of doomsday scenarios for a while. There comes a point where it reaches that point. Are we at a doomsday scenario for journalism? I don't know that we're at a doomsday scenario, but what should the consumer think? What should the local consumer feel right now? They should be upset, and they should be a little bit afraid, because if you end up having two companies combining, which is the talk of Gannett and Gatehouse, that's a pretty significant, what would you call that, Walter? Would you call that a monopoly?
I would say monopoly is not a
that's
bad
pretty
word.
big.
Yeah.
So when you look at Central Massachusetts, that means then that if they were to combine, you've got Gardner News, Sentinel, and Enterprise. I mean, those poor reporters actually literally walk the street. They don't even have a place to. They don't even have a building anymore up there in Fitchburg to call home. They use coffee shops. I mean, you've got Telegram and Gazette, obviously Worcester Magazine. You've got
All
pretty
over
much
Gatehouse.
every Athol Daily News. I'm not sure. Well, actually, I'll take that back. I'm not sure about that. But they're all, point being, they're all Metro West Daily News. They're all going to be under one banner. I mean, I'm not as worried about that as the fact that they seem to think, though, that we will continue to get rid of this attrition of local reporters.
Well, the more concerning aspect for me is the idea of consolidating the local papers, the weeklies. We saw, of course, places like the Shrewsbury paper, they're going to become more regional now, I think. And the argument that's being made that, well, it's not going to affect the local coverage. I don't know how you can make that argument with a straight face. You're cutting resources, you're merging papers, you're taking away that. I think that the idea that you want to have, I think that there's an idea out there that you want to have working editors, editors that are writing, editors that are producing content. Walter produced content. I produce content. I mean, when you work for a smaller paper like that, you produce content.
Right.
That's what you do. You're not just sitting at a desk.
Is meaningful, Walter Crockett, to the individuals that are right here. Listen, I went through this with radio when I was news director at WTAG, and the argument was that it's all right. A guy in Albany who pronounces Leominster is, you feed him a story, and then he'll have a story from New Hampshire, and he'll have a story from Springfield, and it's going to be better. And that's why we're getting rid of all your reporters. It's never better.
No, it's never better. And this started, I got into the telegram, the news business in 1983, and it was already collapsing. The afternoon papers were dying off. The Gazette died, which used to be much bigger than the Telegram, died within a couple of years. And everything has been shrinking since then. That the advertising model has totally changed, and there are fewer readers. But what you got now with Gatehouse, to use a colorful metaphor, is a blood-sucking leech sitting on top of the newspapers all over the country, and it's going to suck them up, and the owners and the shareholders are going to profit, and then they're all going to dwindle down to nothing, as is happening right now.
So why do it then? I mean, guys, they have to put out, and the people who are working there are certainly members of our community who are working to do the best job they can and inform us. But why do it? Why destroy it? Why destroy it?
Because for the same reason the venture capitalists will buy up something and bring it into bankruptcy and walk away with the money. That's what I see Gatehouse is doing. I don't see them doing anything but that. I could be wrong, but I mean
they still need a local product, right, guys?
That's the whole point. No one's going to like what I said. I think local's dead. There is no more local. I'm going to explain why. American society has changed so much that if you think about the people who live in Worcester, a third of the people are migrants or immigrants. They didn't grow up here. They moved here. They move out of here, right? They don't identify. If you ask me, identify yourself, because that's what local is. I identify from Worcester. I want to read Worcester things. This is how I define myself in my local paper. I have an interaction with that to define myself. If you ask me what I am, I'm going to say I'm a father, I'm an immigration lawyer, I'm American, I'm a citizen of the world. I'm not going to say I'm from Worcester. And I moved here 32 years ago because I don't have a local identity except when my kid plays sports and I want to watch television or read the paper to see my kid mentioned in sports. Other than that, I don't get my identity from living in this locality. I get my identity from national news, from international news, and from things, maybe NECN, maybe regional, not much. I think the America society has moved on from local.
Then you're part of the problem. I'm going to tell you something. Yeah. I've talked to plenty of immigrants that I think they move here from Liberia or they move here from Ghana. They started businesses. And I think that they take up an immense amount of pride in Worcester, I think. And they may not call themselves Worcesterians. Worcesterians, is that what?
I like it.
I like that. Wuites, whatever we want to call them. They may not call themselves Worcester natives, and I know I'm not a Worcester native. I came by way of far, far away from Oxford. But I do think that I don't think that it's right to say that migrants and immigrants couldn't identify themselves as being Worcester
Not
people.
primarily, not enough that they care about the local news. If you ask people in Worcester, if you ask like just 100 people, who is the city manager? What's his name? What's the mayor's name? What percentage of people do you think, if you just a random sampling of 100 people could tell you who the city manager or the mayor is? I'm going to say less than a third, probably less than a quarter.
Right, but if you tell them that they're not going to plow your streets anymore, you tell them that your taxes are going up, or you don't have a school anymore, you need to know that. You got kids and everything. Worcester has always had a huge amount of immigrants. The Irish came here as immigrants. Right. They became Worcesterized. The Italians, the Lebanese. I mean, Italians on Shrewsbury Street were Italians when they came here. Now they're Worcester people, and they had, when I was growing up, and the Greeks, the biggest Worcester accents you ever could have heard anywhere, because all the kids, the children are the ones who immigrated, took to and adapted, and that's what's going on now.
America has changed.
Yeah.
The biggest employers in Central Mass in Worcester are healthcare and education.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to come in and take those jobs, and then they're going to move on, and their children are going to move on to bigger cities. America has changed.
So do you think, I mean, the very issues that we're talking about then here today, do you think that people are still interested in fair, free WRTA? Do you think that they're still interested in the issues that we talk about at Central Mass Chronicles? Or do you think that they would be much more interested if we were talking about Donald Trump and impeachment and, you know,
Well, which is what
the
I'll
national
tell you what, I
and
think-
the local media
I think
is
social
now.
media has done that, though. I think social media has really changed the course of how people get their information and what they're interested in. And so social media allows us now to reach out to John Cusack on, in Hollywood,
Yeah,
and he'll talk to you about Trump.
I think there's a real niche for real local. I mean,
Yeah,
I know
well,
people
that's
have
what I'm
tried
saying.
hyper local.
There is
I
still a
think
need.
there is a niche. The question is there a paying market for it?
Well,
that's
yeah.
the harder. That's the harder
Right.
thing. But I don't agree that America's changed. People always moved in America. They always moved from place to place. That's been the way it is. It's changed in an awful lot of ways, and it hasn't always changed for the better in terms of economically. But people still have local needs. You just have to figure what they are. You know, whether and then.
Yeah, some of this is
See if you have
self-interest
to
too,
give it
by
to
the
them
way,
for free.
Randy.
I know.
Local.
I know, I didn't start
And
with that.
we're going to be very local in just a moment because we're going to be talking about Kelley Square right here on Central Mass Chronicles.
Brent's back to the wall, and that one is gone.
Follow the Paw Sox all season long with select games from Charter TV3 and visit chartertv3.com for a complete game telecast schedule. Presented by Cantiani Insurance Agency, Bay State Savings Bank, and the law offices of Joseph J. Carriglia.
Local news from Central Massachusetts for Central Massachusetts.
City Councilor at large and school committee have more than a dozen candidates running. Worcester police are investigating a serious pedestrian accident. State lawmakers moving closer to banning cell phone use behind the wheel. Police make an arrest in connection to a fatal shooting Monday night.
Reporters in the field. And an in-depth local forecast. Worcester News tonight on Charter TV3.
We're proud to lead with high school sports stories in our sportscast.
Local sports have a unique way of bringing families together, bringing generations together.
People remember where they came from. They remember their high schools. They remember their playing days. I learned a lot because I played high school sports.
I absolutely loved every minute of playing high school sports.
Certainly our goal is just to cover the game and to highlight the positive of high school and local college sports.
There's no other place I'd rather be, and there's no other job I'd rather do.
Oh, and we are back at Central Mass Chronicles, and let's go right to you, Walter Crockett. As a matter of fact, let's talk a little bit about Kelley Square. We'll keep it local, we'll keep it at Kelley Square, and this really is, we're just interested in what all of you think. I mean, where's Kelley Square? Obviously, the city manager himself has described it as we got 2 years of hell, but then we're going to have the Peanut, a new way to get through there. We're going to have the ballpark. What do you see Worcester and Kelley Square being like in not only 2 years, but 5 years, 10 years?
Well, I think Kelley Square has worked very well for, it's a strange thing, but, and I once considered giving driving lessons for it, because once you know how to go through it, you can get through it quite easily. But I think that we've brought in a bunch of people from the outside. We have plumped a big stadium right near it, right on near a major intersection that controls traffic that goes out to large parts of Worcester and Paxton and Rutland, you know, and I don't think they're doing it the right way. I don't know how you would do it, but the biggest thing about Kelley Square is that it was kind of working and you don't want to overload it. Now, here I'll tell you briefly my two objections to it. Number one, as you come west on 290 and you get off to go to Kelley Square, that's always worked and it still works well. But now you can't go left and you can't go up Vernon Hill. Instead, they're directing the traffic down around the Peanut past every single intersection in Kelley Square and back up the hill again. That means that people are going through there twice. Essentially, they're going through Kelley Square twice to get back up the hill to Vernon Street. That is a bad idea for Kelley Square traffic, and it's a bad idea for the people on Vernon Street. Otherwise, they got to have an exit early and go up Providence Street and win their way through streets with cars and snow and try to get down to that side of Vernon Hill. So, of course, at some point or other, they'll get back to reopening a Brosnahan Square exit for millions of dollars. But that's further on down the line, and this is all because we chose to spend $100 million of taxpayers' money in Worcester to put a stadium right next to Kelley Square.
Do you think that we've already gotten well, Randy, actually, I don't know. Just pick up on what Walter had to say. The one part that I will say at the end there, Walter, though, is that I think we've already gotten a boost out of the fact that the Worcester Red Sox are coming. I mean, I think that people have, particularly from the outside, are starting to look at the city differently. I think there could be.
Well, it's not $100 million in taxpayer money.
Economic spin-off.
It's not taxpayer
million.
It's not taxpayer money. It's being funded. Well, the plan, anyways.
For them to pay it back.
Yeah. Well, the plan is to be funded by the ancillary development that's coming up. Yeah.
If it's right.
That's the plan.
I think that's baloney.
Okay.
I mean, you've seen that all over. Look at the Sofin Tower. That did a lot to boost the area, didn't it? That was a huge thing. You know, the Sofin Tower. Yeah. It looks like a guy with plaid pants and a
and a rectus.
And all those efforts have been touted and failed and been invested in by the public.
All right, Randy, you as pessimistic?
The obvious answer.
I think that face said it all.
I like Kelley Square the way it is, but you can't have a stadium and still have Kelley Square the way it is. Kelley Square is like Coney Island hot dog. Like, this is Worcester, right? This is the real thing, right? But it's going to be destroyed, right? Now, they're trying to avoid making a ramp from 290 over Kelley Square into the stadium. The whole thing is to avoid that, right? And whether this is a good economic model or not, certainly psychologically the city has benefited tremendously. Whether it will benefit economically tremendously is a very open question. I'm probably a little more like this, Walter. I don't know if it's all going to work. Psychologically, great, right?
Psychologically for who?
For all the people that can now say, Worcester's on the map.
Right, like for the homeless kids who are the fifth highest population
there's a lot of working
in
people
the country.
There's a lot of working people that
They're
want to
psyched
spend
about
their
it.
money on something local to have entertainment.
But I think even, we were talking about the media earlier, I think, Walter, even just if the media, every story from the Boston Globe now doesn't start out about Worcester being this old, washed-up mill town, which is what their de facto, that was what they defaulted to.
Right, they were wrong then and they were wrong now.
And they would only come out, the Boston stations would come out only for weather and crime. And you would never see them for anything but weather and crime. The question is, will this different access stuff on Meade Street, coming on an earlier exit and going on Green Street, will Kelley Square, will this multi-pronged approach to getting to the stadium work? And I think it might. I got to give him credit. I think it
Walter
might.
Bird, we got about 1 minute.
I don't see the doom and gloom of Walter. I don't. I think that the stadium could be. I think that this project and the ball team could be a good thing for Worcester. But there are a lot of issues that I think need to be discussed, and we shouldn't be punched in the face for bringing them up. And if you mention gentrification, you shouldn't be kicked in the shins because you mentioned gentrification. There are many issues that could be businesses that are being displaced because of it, residents that will be displaced because of it. I don't know that it's going to be, oh my God, hide your women and children. This ballpark is coming. It's going to ruin the city. The Canal District was growing. Naturally, it was its own little thing. It had a pulse. I think that there is a concern from some folks that now you've commercialized it now. Now the city's interested in the Canal District because the Paw Sox are coming, when before, it was all grassroots really. But I see some positives here. I don't see all this negative. I think that we could have a really good thing if it is done right.
Well, it's begun, or hopefully it's going to be.
Do you like the way that they've done it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd like to get a clear answer on whether or not there's going to be a community benefits agreement. We keep hearing about that, and we don't see one yet. So far, nothing's really happened yet. They haven't broken ground yet. They're supposed to break ground.
That is going to be the last word. This conversation will continue, but we'll pick up with you in just another week right here on Central Mass Chronicles.